Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Yider Insurance Group, Forward Corporation and T.R. McTaggart, Angler Quest Boats, Security Credit Union, Garber Chevrolet, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Indeed, this is the big guy, Mike Avery, and welcome to our #2 of this week's Outdoor Magazine radio show here on the Outdoor Magazine Radio Network. And I say radio because, as always, this is first and foremost a radio show, a 3-hour weekly outdoor-oriented radio show that airs on many, many broadcast stations, AM and FM stations across Michigan. And I say the best way to listen to Outdoor Magazine Radio, if you can, is on your local radio station, because there you can get your local news, weather, sports, even your local commercials. Maybe there's a sale or something you want to take advantage of. But if you can't, if your local affiliate doesn't carry all 3 hours, or if you live in some part of our state not covered by the broadcast signal of the show, you can always listen to it as a podcast, as a backup. Now, what is a podcast? Podcasting is a huge term these days. Everybody's got podcasts, right? And you know what? I do too. I do the podcast version of the Outdoor Magazine radio show. You can hear that on my website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. You can hear it on my Facebook page. You can hear it on Amazon Music, on my Avery Outdoors Twitter feed, on LinkedIn, iTunes, LinkedIn or LinkedIn? I always call LinkedIn, but I think it's LinkedIn. What do you say, Pat? LinkedIn? Google Play, iHeartRadio, SoundCloud, Spotify, TuneIn, Stitcher, Radio.com. Anywhere you get your podcasts, you can hear the podcast version of the Outdoor Magazine radio show. Also, too, I do monthly podcasts for Jay's Sporting Goods, Offshore Tackle, Angler Quest Boats, Killer Food Plots, Polar Craft Boats, quarterly for MUCC, and I can't tell you who it is, but I just signed a deal to add another podcast to the Outdoor Magazine Podcast Network starting the first week of January 2021. So how cool is that? Regardless, though, if you're listening to me on the broadcast version of the show or the podcast, I do certainly appreciate it. Thank you very much. Been doing this for a long time, and I wouldn't be able to do it without your support over the many years, and I do thank you for that. When I look back on my career, I had a chance to do a lot of cool things, go a lot of cool places, but as I like to say, it's the people I've met and worked with over the years that really stand out. I'm thinking right now of Mark Romanack, Fishing 411. I met Mark when I was at TV5 in Saginaw. Mark was a naturalist at the Greenpoint Nature Center. So we did a few stories back and forth, kind of struck up a friendship, ended up actually working together in the early days of the Fishing 411 TV show. I got out of Mark's way and let him take that thing, and he's been very, very successful with it. He's grown it. Him and his son Jake now have just really made a name for themselves. Of course, Mark is the guy behind the Trollers Precision Trolling app, the Trollers Bible. You know him. We'll get him on the show here now. Mark, welcome back. How you doing, my friend?
Great. I just love those introductions, man. You do such a good job on those introductions. I'm glowing.
Well, and I appreciate you saying that, but it's all true, Mark. I mean, you have really, you've done a great job in building up your franchise and the Fishing 411 and bringing Jake involved and everything you've done. And I know you're far from being done, but you've really had a great career.
Well, I appreciate that, but we've been blessed that we've had a lot of good things happen for us, and we've had a lot of people such as yourself that have helped us along the way. We would have never, ever made our way into television without your helping hand, and I'll always be indebted to you for that.
Indebted, or some days you think I probably cursed you in some ways?
No, it's worked out pretty good. We've had our stresses with TV, as you well know. I mean, we did it a long time. But in the end, it's a great thing. It's a good means of communication for us, and it definitely has spread our name far and wide.
And, Mark, I do want to talk about fishing, obviously, but let's talk a little bit about hunting. I think back when you were pro staffing on the Outdoor Magazine TV show, and I tell this story as just a way of illustrating your character. You were on a bear hunt in Ontario. You made what we thought was a great shot on a bear. You weren't able to recover it, and you said, you know what, I'm done. The outfitter said, no, you can go ahead and shoot another bear. And you said, you know what, I'm done. I don't want to do this. because you had drawn blood. Today, I know you're just getting out of a tree stand right now. What role does hunting play in your world? We think of you so much as a fisherman.
Well, it's more recreational than it is anything else. And even though I do write a little bit about hunting, I still do some outdoor writing. The way I look at hunting is a way to recharge the batteries. It's a reset button for us and our family because fishing is all-encompassing. I mean, we're fishing literally every week of the year. So to take a few days off here and there and get a deer hunt in or maybe to go do some duck hunting, that's real, just pure pleasure for us. And our whole family looks forward to it. And even though it's been real quiet today in the deer blind, I've enjoyed every second of it.
Well, and those quiet mornings, I know what you're saying. Those quiet mornings in the deer blind are really a chance to give you a chance to recharge, to maybe think a little bit out of the box that the day-to-day grind of getting the job and the work done just doesn't allow.
Well, there's no truth. That's absolutely true in my mind. And we've come to really appreciate the time we get to spend hunting because we don't get to do all that much of it. And don't get me wrong. I mean, I'd love to have a little bit more time to hunt, but I'm very, very content with all the time we get to fish. And if I get a few bonus days to hunt, I'm a happy man.
Boy, bringing Jake into the business is, well, a blessing and a great move on your part. At least it seems from the outside, Mark.
Well, it absolutely is a blessing. I mean, there's so many advantages that Jake brings to the plate, so to speak. It's been fun watching his communication skills grow. He's getting to the point where he really has a lot of confidence in what he's doing and what he's saying and how he's delivering that information to people. But for me, the most important thing is his grasp of technology. You and I are about the same age, so you probably can appreciate what I'm going to say. It's a little harder for us older guys to grasp new technology and run with it. Jake absolutely has no issue with that. I don't care how sophisticated the technology is, he grasps it, maximizes it, and uses it to be more effective in the field. And, man, I don't know if I could do that without him dragging me along by the bootstraps.
And he's had a great teacher in you, and that he is he's as good as they come these days. Not just as far as being an educator, but being a fisherman. I mean, when you guys go on the water and you set your sights on a specific species or technique or body of water or whatever, you get it done.
Well, not always. Trust me. We still have our zeros, and we still have days out there where we kind of look at ourselves in the mirror and wonder what went wrong. But most of the time, our success is based on the fact that we do our homework before we show up on location. As you know, shooting television is very expensive. Every day and every hour in the field that you put out there eats up cash. And so we do an awful lot of research ahead of time to make sure that we're showing up at the right place at the right time, using the right baits and the right presentations to be successful. And most of the time that pays off. Sometimes it doesn't work out as the way we planned, and we do get those failures. But the vast majority of our efforts do end up being successful.
When you're not in a tree stand right now, what are you working on? What are you fishing for?
Well, this time of year, of course, I'm really big about walleye fishing. Walleye fishing is my first love, probably be my last love. And the thing is that the later you get in the fall, the better the walleye fishing gets in places like Saginaw Bay and Lake Erie, the Detroit River, Lake St. Clair, the St. Clair River. All of those are world-class fisheries, and they're all just snapping right now. There's great fishing to be had at all of those bodies of water.
I'm seeing, after chasing small walleye on Saginaw Bay all summer and absolutely loving it, I'm seeing some real nice pictures coming out of Saginaw Bay these last couple of weeks that look like Lake Erie fish. I mean, the big girls are back.
Well, yeah, and they were a little late coming this year. It's kind of interesting because, normally the fishing on Saginaw Bay starts in October and just gets better and better and better right up until ice up. And this year it was kind of slow, early fall. And a lot of us have been scratching our heads and wondering why. And the only suggestion I can offer you is that with the dams blowing out of the Tibbetawasee River this spring and that less water coming down from the Tibbetawasee system through the Saginaw into Saginaw Bay, it seems like with less current flow that those fish were a little slow to arrive. One thing you can bet on is that walleyes like flowing water, and we didn't have much this fall. We had very little flow coming out the Saginaw River.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. But the you talked about the St. Clair and the Detroit River being on fire. You want water flow, boy, down there it's a whole different ballgame. I mean, you've got current speeds that intimidate a guy like me down there.
Well, and there's plenty. Nothing has changed there. So the water flow that you would expect, coming out of the St. Clair River and coming out of the Detroit River is about the same as it normally is. And so those fisheries started right on schedule, just like you'd expect in October, and they just got better and better as the season progresses. And I don't have a crystal ball, so I can't tell you when ice is going to put an end to the fun. But historically, in recent years, we fish through most of the month of December. It's typically right around Christmas time before we can't get on the water anymore, and some years even later than that.
I used to hear a lot about the UP walleye fisheries, the Bays de Noc, Manasquan Bay, and such. I don't hear as much anymore. Are those fisheries as viable as they used to be?
Well, they can be. I think the reason why that has slowed down a little bit is the stocking efforts up there stocked, and they stopped doing that. They used to stock those, both the Big Bay and Little Bay, considerably. But now, most of that fishery seems to be further south into Green Bay, not so much into Little Bay de Noc and Big Bay de Noc, even though they do get fish there. If you go a little bit further south, like the Ford River and down into Green Bay, that's been extremely good in recent years. And so that's where you're seeing the concentration of anglers. That's where the concentration of fish are at. We've been there several times filming now, and I'm telling you that, Green Bay probably is producing the biggest on average walleyes you'll catch anywhere, and that includes Lake Erie and Saginaw.
Wow. We're talking with Mark Romanack of Fishing 411, the website fishing411.net, fishing411.net. We got to take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine show. When we come back, maybe switch gears a little bit and talk about the early ice fishing season coming up. Mark loves to ice fish, and he's very good at it, as he is most things on the ice or the water. More coming up right here on Outdoor Magazine. By now, you know all about Angler Quest boats. The center console design, binary wall system, and smooth ride with lots of room have anglers convinced a pontoon can be a great fishing rig. And the folks at Michigan-based Angler Quest continue to make their boats even better. Now the signature rocket launcher arch can tilt down. That's great for high water levels, trailering, and storage. Also, there's a new panfish model that's perfect for smaller inland lakes. The popular Pro Troll models continue to dominate big water for walleye, salmon, and trout, and the family fish can keep everyone happy, whether fishing or cruising. All Angler Quest boats are designed by fishermen and made in Michigan by skilled craftsmen using the latest technology. You can learn more online at anglerquestpontoons.com. That's anglerquestpontoons.com. With more models, upgraded designs, plenty of features, and bigger outboards, this is the perfect year for you to join the Angler Quest family.
At Garber Chevrolet in Midland, Saginaw, Linwood, Caro, and now Chesaning. We're better for a reason. Like Garber's low price guarantee. Get incredible everyday low prices on a new Chevy Equinox, Silverado, Traverse, or Trax. Think you found a better deal somewhere else? Bring it to us, and we will beat it. Getting more options and choices is always better. And Garber's combined inventory is the Great Lakes Bay region's largest selection of new Chevrolets. Browse online at GarberChevrolet.com. Then use our Buy From Home feature to purchase entirely online. And Garber Chevrolet's customer service is in a class of its own. We always put your needs first. Better prices, better selection. There's a reason why you'll do better at Garber Chevrolet in Midland, Saginaw, Linwood, Caro, and now Chesaning. Home of the low price guarantee. Online at GarberChevrolet.com. Chevy, find new roads.
You'll do better at Garber.
Everybody needs to put gas in their tank, so the next time, why not save money with fuel rewards from Forward Shell convenience stores? With fuel rewards, you'll save at least 5 cents a gallon on every fill-up at the 26 Forward Shell convenience stores. Plus, you can earn additional savings with select products and special offers at those Forward stores. You can save 20, 30, even 40 cents a gallon, and the more you use fuel rewards, the more you can save. I use the Fuel Rewards program every time I stop by a Forward Shell convenience store. And you can too. Go to fuelrewards.com. That's fuelrewards.com. You can also download the Fuel Rewards app on your phone. The Fuel Rewards program at your local Forward Shell convenience store. A great way to save money every time you fill up. To learn more, check out forwardconvenience.com. That's forwardconvenience.com. 20 feet in the air is no time to be second-guessing your choice in tree stands. But with the new Primal line of stands, you'll never have to worry about comfort or noise. Primal's new jaw and truss ladder system gives you an extra firm and quiet attachment, even on irregular trees. The Primal Grip Jaw system features a strong set of jaws so you can securely clamp around the tree. The Backbone Stabilizer Truss lets you connect to almost any healthy tree and eliminates annoying squeaks. With single ladder stands from 16 to 22 feet and double stands up to 18 feet, new Primal tree stands have a model for every hunter. To learn more, check out the website primaltreestands.com. That's primaltreestands.com. Stalk your prey the primal way with Primal Tree Stands. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Tawas on WIOS, AM and FM, 1480 AM, 106.9 FM. You can hear us on the other side of the state in St. Joe on WSJM, 94.9 FM. And let's jump north of the bridge to the Sioux, ESPN 1400 WKNW. Hey, good morning to my friends in the Sault Ste. Marie Police Department. Thanks for listening. I do appreciate it. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by Great Lakes Charter Training. If you've ever wanted to become a charter captain, I think this is your best option. This is how I got my captain's license, and I can't speak highly enough about this class Captain Mel Stackpool has put together. Captain John Littlefield actually taught my class. I think it was 7 or 9 days of very intense training, education, memorization. I could not have got my captain's license without it. They guarantee that you will pass the Coast Guard test. You cannot beat that. For more details, check out the website glctraining.com. That's glctraining.com. We're talking right now with Mark Romanack of Fishing 411, the website fishing411.net, but you can find him on YouTube and all over social media. Mark, before the break, you were talking a little bit about, well, you know, you're going to enjoy the open water fishing as long as you can, but I know that you love that early ice action too, don't you?
Yeah, it's hard not to enjoy it. And for us, there's a couple of ways that we're going to be focusing. Of course, I like paying fish, so the very first ice we get on our small inland lakes, I'll be going after bluegills and crappie. I enjoy that a lot. But the real excitement is when places like Saginaw Bay freeze, because the walleye fishery out there, as you know, is pretty darn amazing. And it's not just the early ice bite that's good. Once we get safe ice on Saginaw Bay, we've got great fishing all winter long, and that is a real blessing.
Why is there an ice fishery on Lake Erie?
You know, there is and there isn't. It's kind of funny because in the years that it freezes, and it's rare that happens, the fishing on Lake Erie for ice fishing can be just, let's just call it phenomenal. I mean, it's unlike anything else I've ever experienced. But you can go 6, 8, 10 years without safe ice there. It just is what it is. The latitude of Lake Erie is far enough south that it's just really on that bubble. And while they get ice around the Port Clinton area and the Bass Islands area just about every year, for the Western Basin to freeze, it's pretty rare. It did in 2014 and 2015 back to back. And those of us that got out there just had a picnic. Hasn't done it since. So you get my drift. It's when it does freeze, it can be tremendous fishing, but you just can't sit around and expect it's going to happen. Meanwhile, Saginaw Bay freezes almost every single year.
But when it freezes, of course, is the big question, right? Some years earlier than others.
Well, and we, again, don't have that crystal ball to tell you when that will happen. But, yeah, there's been years when we've been catching them in the open water the week before Christmas and ice fishing the week after.
I know it.
And I'm kind of hoping that this year that ice comes early. It would be really nice. It'd be a benefit for the guys to be able to get out there and enjoy that. As you know, people in Michigan really got shortchanged a little bit on fishing this year because of COVID. And so hopefully they can make up for it a little bit this winter. That would be a blessing.
Did you have to shut down your production schedule last spring as a part of this whole deal?
Afraid so. And we had to abide by the regulations just like everybody else. And so We lost what hurt us the most probably was the month of April. And when the motorboat ban was in effect, that hurt us big time. It's pretty hard to film a television show out of a boat without an outboard motor.
Yeah.
And so, we were twiddling our thumbs and wishing for better things to come, just like everybody else.
How many shows a year do you guys produce?
Well, we're still 13, and of course they repeat to 26. And we still have one show yet to shoot this year. We've got 12 in the can, and we could survive if we didn't get 13 because we could do a best of episode if we wanted to. But we're still optimistic that between now and the first of the year, we'll get an opportunity to shoot number 13.
I want to go back to early season panfish for a minute. Where do you look? I mean, some of these inland lakes are pretty good size, some are smaller. But when you look at that snow-covered ice out there from the shore, where do you start drilling holes? Where do you look?
Well, that's a problem. If you wait until the ice forms before you start to go look for them, you're going to be wasting a lot of energy. You're going to have to punch a lot of holes. You're going to have to get some mapping, some GPS mapping, and take your best chances in that. I like to get out in late fall and map these lakes with my sonar and my boat so that I know where the weed edges are, I know where the humps are, I know where the structure is, I know where the cups and the weed edges are, and get that stuff all locked down and get waypoints on all that stuff so that once the ice forms, I can go directly to places that theoretically should be holding fish. And that really cuts the learning curve, so to speak, and puts you on fish fast because the problem with ice fishing is no matter how you slice it, you're fishing through an 8-inch hole, but between your feet, you're not covering very much water.
Yeah.
And so if you don't want to go out there and just drill hole after hole after hole, you need to do a little bit of research in late fall before ice forms. Right now would be a good time to be doing that, Mike. And
then you actually go out there in your boat and you mark these on your Lowrance or your GPS or some way like that, right? Correct.
Save waypoints on the GPS. Of course, I use Lowrance equipment. And then it's real easy these days to save waypoints to a data chip and take that memory chip and put it in whatever handheld GPS or other GPS unit you might use for ice fishing. And so you can transfer that data from person to person, machine to machine. And that way you literally can, if you're a guy that walks out, you can literally walk to your spot and walk right directly to the place where you're going to find fish. Or if you've got a UTV or a snow machine, you can use that to go precisely where you need to go ice fishing.
So early season ice, you're looking for whatever weeds are still left. Are you looking for any contours, any specific depths?
Yeah, for most inland lakes, for the bluegills and crappie, you're going to find them early in that 10 foot of water or 10 to 15 foot of water tends to be where we generally find them. And almost always we're fishing very close to the weed edge, if not right in the weeds. Panfish don't like to vary too far from cover, and particularly bluegills and crappie. A little later in the wintertime, you might find those fish moving into deeper water. It's very common for us to find them in 20, 25, 30 feet as the winter progresses. But on first ice, we can usually find them in 10 to 15 feet of water most times.
When you find them in that shallower water, what effect does us as anglers tromping around on the ice or even running the quads or something over the ice, does that shut those fish down for a while?
It has a huge impact, Mike, and I'm glad you mentioned that because what a lot of guys will do is they'll go and they'll drill a couple of holes, and maybe they're successful, maybe they're not, then they go and they drill a couple more, and then they go and drill a couple more. What I prefer to do when I get to the area where I anticipate there's fish, I like to spot, to either punch in a whole bunch of holes, following a contour or in a general area where I expect fish are going to be. It's not uncommon for us to put 12, 15, as many as 20 holes in at a time. And then what I'll do is I'll set up on one, and I'll start looking at sonar. If I'm not marking any fish, I'll go to the next one. I'll go to the next one, and I'll use the sonar until I find fish. Once I find fish, that's the hole. I'll be fishing for a while. But, invariably what's going to happen, you're going to catch a few fish, and the hole's going to go dead. And then you need to jump to another one. If you've got to go out and auger new holes during prime time, you're spooking fish. And so it's nice to have those holes all pre-drilled so that you can go hole to hole to hole at prime time and catch those fish when the fish are biting.
Do you use an underwater camera through the ice at all?
Yeah, underwater video is really important for ice fishing. There's no question it's a valuable tool. For one, it's going to allow you to see the species that you're marking. Sonar will, tell you there's fish there, but it won't tell you what species. You could be looking at a bunch of suckers or carp and not realize it. So it's really nice from that perspective. Also, sometimes fish bite so light under the ice, it's really difficult to detect the strike. And where with a video, obviously you can see when the fish has it in his mouth. And so underwater video in combination with sonar is probably the best 1-2 punch you can do for ice fishing.
I haven't used an underwater camera since the old early days of AquaView. I got to believe they have improved a lot.
Oh, they have. In fact, right now, you can get an AquaView unit, and you can tie it into your Lowrance unit. So you can be using the monitor of your Lowrance unit to view sonar on one side and video on the other. I'm talking super slick. That's what we'll be doing this year. And so you don't even have to buy a monitor when you buy an underwater video camera. Basically, you're buying the lens, and you're buying the cord and stuff. But then you're piping it right in through a HDMI cord. You're piping it right into your sonar unit.
You talked about on inland lakes, early season ice, going out to the same areas you were fishing late fall. Is that the same on a bigger body of water like a Saginaw Bay? Could I go to my summertime hot spots and catch fish?
Yeah, usually, generally speaking, on first sight, that's true. And in Saginaw Bay, the weed line in Saginaw Bay tends to be between 8 and 10 foot of water. And so if you find those weed edges, you're going to find panfish there, no question about it. But you're also going to want to look at Saginaw Bay. You're going to want to look at the marinas. Those marinas that are adjacent to the Saginaw Bay have cuts coming in and out of them that are a little bit deeper water, and those can be red hot for perch, bluegills, and crappie.
What about walleye? Could I hit my walleye hot spots?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, on first ice, we generally get most of our walleye in that shallower water, in that 10, 12, 15 foot of water. It's not until midwinter we start getting out into that 20, 25 feet of water in Saginaw Bay. So absolutely, the early ice is going to have fish in shallower water. As the winter progresses, you're going to have to expect to look for them in a little bit deeper water.
Mark, let's talk. I've got a couple of minutes left. Let's talk a little bit about your precision trolling app. I mean, you guys are known as the king of this whole thing. Everybody has the precision trolling app on their phone these days. Everybody uses it. What you've been able to accomplish with this is phenomenal. How did you come up with this idea? How did it all start?
Well, actually, it wasn't my idea initially. It was actually the idea of Dr. Stephen Holt. Steve's an old friend of mine, as you remember. He used to be my tournament partner.
Yeah.
And when I was back in the days when I was fishing tournaments. And Steve was a scuba diver and an avid fisherman, and he came up with a concept that, you ought to be able to troll lures past the scuba diver to determine how deep they would dive below the surface. And, of course, being a doctor, he's a very bright guy, but he's also very analytical, very scientific-based. And so he knew that if you controlled all the variables, that you could then replicate those variables and catch fish time after time, and he was spot on. I came on board several years later as a marketing agent to help him market it. And eventually we became partners, and the company just grew and grew and grew. And it continues to grow. We're still experiencing, 15 to 20% growth every year in sales. And I wake up every morning and I think, I wonder if this is the last year that, that anyone's ever going to buy a precision trolling app. But it doesn't work out that way. There's just new people coming to the table. And even though we've got thousands of customers, we're signing up thousands more every year.
Oh, that's wonderful. Mark, always a pleasure. I appreciate your time, and I'll send people to the website, fishing411.net. Where do we see the show?
We're on Sportsman's Channel and World Fishing Network again this year, and if you can't get it there, of course, everybody's got YouTube, and we'll be on YouTube as well.
Fishing411.net is the website. His name is Mark Romanack. Mark, always a pleasure. Let's talk again soon.
Thanks, Mike.
We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine show. When we come back, I want to talk a little bit more, going back to an earlier theme in the show, the increase in the number of hunters here in Michigan, probably COVID-related, but Dustin Eisenhoff from the DNR will join me to talk about those numbers. And then we'll wrap up the hour with the Ask Avery segment, a question about the CWD patrols on I-75 by the DNR last weekend, right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Caro on two stations, WKYO 1360 AM and 92.1 FM WIDL. And you can hear us in Sheboygan on two stations as well, Big Country Gold, WCBY 1240 AM and 100.7 FM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Speedy Blaze. Speedy Blaze is a safe, clean, water-resistant alternative to firewood. It's safe to cook over because it's made from recycled hardwood. You can use it in your fireplace. You can use it in your grill. You can use it in your camp. I mean, wherever you want. It's insect resistant. It's water resistant. And it's a Michigan-based family-owned company. Check them out online at speedyblaze.com. That's speedyblaze.com. Throughout much of the show this week, we've been talking about the increase in interest in the outdoors this fall, probably COVID-related. And we keep hearing about the number of deer hunters on the rise here in Michigan. I thought, you know what? Let's go right to the source. Let's go to the DNR. Dustin Eisenhoff is the guy who keeps track of these, and he's with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Dustin, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you.
So tell us about the trend. I guess we can't say it's a trend because it's brand new, but what are the numbers you're seeing?
Yeah, for sure. So the numbers are up, just like you mentioned. The number of total unique hunting customers, so that's all things hunting, any species, any type, that's up 5.5% through just a couple days ago, through the 22nd November.
Does that go back to the springtime turkey season too?
Yep, that does include the springtime turkey season, and that springtime turkey season was up 27%. So we saw some huge increase when we're looking at that turkey season. A little bit different environment probably with what folks were dealing with at home. So again, you mentioned that probably COVID-related thing. Maybe a little bit different effect in the spring, but yeah, that does include those numbers, the overall numbers there.
Okay.
Yep. And then the deer season, obviously it's deer time right now. Those numbers for any deer license are up just over 5%, so 5.2%. So, those numbers are pretty close in line with that overall number. Most folks that deer hunt in the state of Michigan, so that number really is driving that percentage.
How many additional hunters are in the woods this fall?
Yeah, that's a good question. So it's around around 30,000 additional deer hunting licenses. If we go through that 22nd date, I mean, obviously, it depends on the day, but that's kind of our overall number.
Well, 30,000 licenses doesn't necessarily equate to 30,000 hunters, though, does it?
Correct. So the numbers that I'm speaking to are all based on unique customers. So that's kind of the baseline overall trend information that we use here and that I like to report out on. So any of these are what we call unique customers and not necessarily licenses.
Okay, so those are the number of hunters we're talking about. 30,000 is the number of hunters.
Yep.
Okay,
correct.
Gotcha. Any way of knowing if this will continue at all?
That'd be great to know, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
These are definitely unprecedented times. Certainly we hope that it continues, but I would say there's no real certain way to know that. I can tell you that we're doing everything we possibly can to figure out, who these folks are and then what is it going to take to keep them engaged, not only in 2021, but, the foreseeable future.
I was speculating as a non-scientist, as a non-statistician, that I'm thinking, well, it's got to be COVID related. I mean, are you guys in the department looking at it the same way? Is that what you attribute it to?
Yeah, I would say that's, the safe assumption in the room got to be COVID related because, we can look at other factors and we can look at the trend. So 1996 was the highest deer hunting participation year, and we've seen that kind of slow decline, not only Michigan, but across much of the nation, and it's slow and gradual. So nothing seems to happen very rapidly within the hunting world. So we've seen folks get a little bit older, and a few less folks, 1 to 3% a year, participating each year, and pretty much can count on that trend until this year where things change. Particularly like that turkey season. seeing an up 27% is something that we haven't seen before. So,
real quick before I have to let you go, any particular demographic groups up more than others?
For sure. So our 9 and under group is up 16%, and our female customer group is up 14%. And then the big one that we're real excited about is our new customer group, and that's just over 100,000 folks, is up 68%. So that's a huge jump. We're seeing new customers really drive what we're seeing here.
100,000 new hunters, and that's up 68%. That's huge. Thank you, Dustin. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
All right, Dustin Eisenhoff of the DNR, the website michigan.gov/DNR, or as Ashley was telling us earlier, michigan.gov/deer is also a good place to go to check on these things. Going to continue on the DNR theme here after the break, and we do have to take a break here. When we come back, this week's Ask Avery segment with questions about an operation on I-75 last weekend by some conservation officers targeting hunters. What was it all about, and can they do that? Well, of course they can do that. Details after the break right here on Outdoor Magazine. Security Credit Union wants to thank you for helping to make them one of Michigan's fastest growing credit unions. Check out Security's Debit Rewards program, where you can earn points just by using your debit or Titanium Rewards credit card. Redeem those points for great gifts and merchandise. Or how about the Save to Win account? That's a Security Credit Union account that gives you all the benefits of a traditional savings account, plus the chance to win big. Every $25 you deposit into this share certificate earns you an entry into the monthly and quarterly drawings. The more you save, the more chances to earn, up to 10 entries per month. You'll build up your savings, earn interest and dividends, and have a chance at multiple prizes. And remember, Security Credit Union loves to work with outdoorsmen and women, and they can help you with your next outdoor adventure. Check them out online at securitycu.org. That's securitycu.org. Federally insured by the NCUA. Have you tried the Mike Avery Hunter Sticks from Michigan Brand Meats? They feature 2 of my favorites, elk and pepper, and I think they taste great. I've been working with the Grillo family of Michigan Brand for a few years now, and I couldn't be happier. Michigan Brand is family-owned and based right here in Michigan, and they make lots of great products. From jerky, sausage, and those hunter sticks to their famous Michigan Brand hams, you can't go wrong with Michigan Brand meats. Plus, Michigan Brand can process your boned-out wild game, too. Check out the website, michiganbrand.net, for more info. That's michiganbrand.net. You can buy the Mike Avery Hunter Sticks on that website. Plus, you can get them at Jay's Sporting Goods, all Forward convenience stores, Jack's Fruit Markets, and many other great stores, too. There's a complete list on the website. Again, that's michiganbrand.net for the Mike Avery Hunter Sticks, the outstanding Michigan Brand hams, and lots more. michiganbrand.net.
It's a complicated world we live in. Right about now, I'll bet your head is spinning like a tornado with news and opinions and conflicting do this and don't do that recommendations. Some days, you just want to throw up your hands, go to the woods, and stay there. And that's not a bad idea. Jay's Sporting Goods encourages you to get back to your roots. Do some simple, traditional things for a while. In Michigan's great outdoors, space is one thing we have plenty of. So put as much social distance as you like between you and everyone else, including all your social media pals who somehow just recently became experts on every topic. And one more thing. Before you head out, head into Jay's Sporting Goods. Because even though there are shortages of a lot of things these days, Jay's has just what you need to make the most of your escape to our beautiful wide open spaces. It's the gateway to social distancing the way God intended. Jay's Sporting Goods, Clare and Gaylord.
It's time to think about your pig. You know, the propane tank in your backyard that heats your home. Well, there's no better company to fill your pig than Forward Energy, covering over 20 counties. Forward Energy is a family-owned and operated propane supplier that's fueled area homes, farms, businesses, and hunters and anglers since 1925. Fill your pig this year. Visit forwardenergy.com to find out about new customer pricing and programs.
With Forward Energy.
When you buy a Michigan hunting or fishing license, you're helping to fund conservation efforts across the state. The majority of funding for taking care of Michigan's fish and wildlife comes from you, hunters and anglers, not state taxes. So on behalf of the Michigan Wildlife Council, we'd like to thank you for your part in ensuring that Michigan's hunting and fishing heritage will be here for generations. Learn how the Michigan Wildlife Council promotes the role of hunting and fishing at hereformioutdoors.org.
You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Port Huron on WPHM 1380 AM. And you can hear us in Manistee on WMLQ 97.7 FM. The Ask Avery segment is brought to you each week by Security Credit Union. Security Credit Union loves to work with outdoorsmen and women, and they can help you with your next outdoor adventure. Check them out online at securitycu.org. That's securitycu.org. You probably know this by now, but the way the Ask Avery segment works is this is your chance to get directly involved in the content of the show. If you have a question about an outdoor-related issue, this is your chance to submit it to me. You can send me an email to mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com, or you can post it on any of the social media outlets. And say, hey, this is for the Ask Avery segment. And the way this works is sometimes there are questions that I can answer directly, and sometimes there are questions I have to go elsewhere to get the answers to, like this week. And this is not from one particular person, but I heard about this from several people. I've got emails on this, I got private messages on this, and I got a couple of posts on the Facebook page. And people were questioning last weekend. I think it was just southbound I-75. It must have been because it was between the Mackinac Bridge and Gaylord. There were what was described as a bunch of conservation officers pulling over hunters. What's it all about, and can they do that? So I got in touch with the command officer in charge of that operation and had a nice discussion with him. This was part of their annual CWD patrols to look for the illegal transportation of animals coming in from states or provinces known to have CWD problems. Now, they also do this in the southern part of the state to try to get deer coming in from, out west in Illinois and such. But that's what this was. It was done in southbound I-75, also done in the southern part of the state, not necessarily last weekend. There were 8 to 10 conservation officers involved in this, plus support from some Michigan State Police troopers. They were targeting deer hunters or those who may have been hunting. And that's pretty obvious, right? Somebody's driving down the road, I-75 in a truck, and they got orange hats on the dashboard, or they got the feet of deer sticking out the back, or they're pulling a trailer with quads and hunting gear and stuff. It's pretty obvious who has been hunting, right? They made 77 stops. They wrote tickets for 6 misdemeanors, 5 loaded guns, 1 ticket for a tagging violation. They checked 34 deer. They checked 26 guns. They made an arrest for 1 outstanding warrant. There were 12 fish and game verbal warnings issued. 61 general verbal warnings issued, like for what? Traffic or speeding or whatever. And there were no CWD violations found. But the comment, the gist of the questions I was getting from people is, can the DNR do this? Well, of course they can do it. Why wouldn't they be able to do it? Conservation officers, a.k.a. game wardens, as I often call them, are sworn police officers. They have all the authority of a Michigan State trooper. They just happen to concentrate primarily on fish and game, but they're cops. And when I say cop, that is no disrespect. My dad was a cop for 35 years, so I normally come down on the side of pro-law enforcement. But absolutely they can do this. They have the authority, if they want to make a traffic stop. But they were doing this as a way to check hunters. They said for CWD violations, but obviously it's a way to check for other violations as well, untagged deer or, uncased guns or whatever. but they do have the authority to do that. Now, people said, well, why aren't they out there in the woods concentrating on hunters in the woods? And that's a legitimate question. That's a valid question. But there were officers out in the woods as well. And think about this. If you've got one officer trying to patrol half of a county, his odds of interacting with hunters are whatever they are. But if you funnel those hunters down on I-75, where you know they're going to come down through there, your odds of having more interaction and more contact with hunters, the odds go up. Odds go up. So that's what it was all about. Now, whether you have a problem with that or not is going to depend on your thoughts toward the DNR. Here in the state of Michigan, in some circles, it's cool to hate the DNR and everything they do. I don't think that's fair. Yes, the DNR is a big government entity, and I'm not a big government guy. I don't like big government stuff. But I think the people who just say, oh, I hate the DNR, and you ask them, well, why do you hate the DNR? Well, I don't know. My dad hated the DNR. Well, and I ask your dad, why did your dad hate the DNR? Well, because my dad hated the DNR. And if you could get back to Grandpa 3 generations ago, you'd say, why do you hate the DNR? Oh, because I got a ticket one time. Well, okay, all right. But to answer the question, it was part of a CWD patrol. That's why they were doing it, but they were also, of course, checking hunters for deer, untagged deer and such. They did make some arrests. They did some violations. But if you wondered what it's about, that's what it's about. If you have a question for the Ask Avery segment, anything outdoor related, or anything related to what I do or whatever, you can send it to me at mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com or hit me up on any of the social media outlets. And again, thanks to our friends at Security Credit Union for helping to make each week's Ask Avery segment possible. We'll take a break for the top of the hour. When we come back, we're going to talk beagles and bunnies, a wintertime tradition in Michigan, with Corky LeGuy.